Hello everybody, my name is Jason DeLange and this is my disaster comparison for Safety 712. Today we're going to talk about the Elk River chemical spill, which was an above ground storage tank spill into the Elk River in West Virginia and later on Lake Michigan, the Flint River, Michigan spill, or lead problem. So West Virginia, Freedom Industries located in West Virginia. There was a spill on January 9th of methylcyclohexene methanol and propylene glycol phenyl ether. Around 10,000 gallons was leaked into the Elk River, affecting 9 counties, saturating the filters of the water company, making them ineffective. A total of 300,000 citizens were affected, and a state of emergency and a federal emergency were created. The National Guard and FEMA were brought in to bring in tankers of water and tractor trailers of water for the citizens. The National Guard also began water testing of the river on January 10th, and limits of the chemical were found to be 3.35 parts per million, when the regulatory limit of the chemical itself was 1 part per million. The chemical does have a licorice odor, which is what citizens noticed first. It is used to treat coal, to clean it for production, and the odor threshold is tens part per billion, so it can be smelled even if it's below the safe limit. It causes nausea, vomiting, dizziness, headaches, and rashes. And the chemical was grandfathered in by the Toxic Substance Control Act. So very little information is known about the chemical. And Eastman Chemical, the creator of the chemical, has most of its studies are proprietary, so very little information is known. So emergency responders could not properly do their job because they did not know about the chemical and how to properly clean it up. Total $61 million in damages were for the community, not including future damages. Freedom Industries did go bankrupt. The Virginia Water Company was sued for $126 million. Eastman Chemical for $25 million. It was found out that no inspection protocol or maintenance records were in place, and no leak detection systems or secondary containment were in place to properly contain the spill or detect the spill if it were to occur. And West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection regulations were very lax and not enforced at all. And access to the records were almost impossible to obtain. Senate Bill 373 was enacted for better maintenance records, inspection records, and compliance. But later, Senate Bill 423 was enacted, which reduced those regulations, primarily from lobbying from the big chemical companies. CDC did do surveys on the public to see how they wanted their information in the future, whether it be radio, TV, social media, to better get information out there. State limits for the chemical were decreased. Electronic systems were in place for better record keeping, primarily for safety data sheets. Training was increased because there was a lack of training in NIMS and GIS protocol for government officials. A review board was created, but another company called Lexicon LLC did replace Freedom Chemical on the same property by a former Freedom employee. The initial press conference occurred at 6 p.m. even though the spill itself happened at 8:15. So there should not be that big of a gap. The citizens of the county need to be informed as quick as possible. And even after the spill, health official Letitia Tierney recommended pregnant women not to drink the water, even though it was below the 1 part per million safe limits. And all this was due to lack of data, primarily. Michigan water will be the next thing we talk about. In order to save $200 million over 25 years, the county switched from the Detroit Water Company to the Karengotti Water Authority, but they needed to put a new pipeline in to Lake Huron, and in order to gap that, they were going to use water from the Flint River until that pipeline was replaced. Corrosion inhibitors were not in place, so the water, which was 19 times more corrosive than the Detroit water, ate away at the pipes, leaching lead into the water. And a Legionella outbreak also occurred due to the dirty water, which was the third largest outbreak in history in the United States, killing 12, sickening 87. The Michigan Department of Environmental Quality did exclude samples from their initial testing, in order to stay below the limits, so they could say their water was safe. But a Virginia Tech study later on found out the lead limits were extremely high, and a local pediatrician found blood level concentrations of lead in children to be extremely high. And this is important because lead absorption is almost 5 times higher in children than adults. They did eventually switch back to the Detroit water supply, but this was almost a year later after the initial exposure. A state of emergency by the governor was enacted, and a federal state of emergency was enacted also by President Obama. They did give out free water filters and testing of water supplies, and the public eventually did sue for home water delivery for people with disabilities that could not get water. The problems was when the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality did their initial testing, they flushed the lines to clean them before they got their testing, which reduced the concentrations of lead. Department of Health and Human Services initially reported that the high lead was due to a seasonal change and that no health concerns were involved. And then Brad Werfel, who worked with the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, told the public to relax after the first positive test, which was recorded from the home of Leanne Walters on February 26. Council members did vote to reconnect to the Detroit water, but this was overruled by the emergency manager, Jerry Ambrose, on March 23rd because they really needed to save money. This was primarily due to the $8 million upgrade to the facility that would be required to change over. Fixes that should occur: the lead and copper rule, which requires 15 parts per billion in 10% or less of homes, is the regulatory limit for lead. This rule was changed to notify the public if high levels did exist from testing. So what happened was there's 2 6-month testing periods when the switch happened, and there was a legal interpretation which delayed the process. So testing results did not get out as fast as possible. And then the EPA did amend this lead and copper rule later on, requiring notification to homes within 24 hours of a high test of lead in their water. No flushing of lines prior to testing for better accuracy. But the one negative thing was they did change from a 7%. They're required to take out 7% of lead pipes and replace them with clean pipes, but this was changed to 3%, which was a negative. In total, 21,000 lines have been inspected, 8,000 have been replaced as of 2019. There is an ongoing $600 million settlement for the citizens. Michigan did change their water standards to 12 parts per billion for lead. Emergency manager law was unchanged, so the emergency manager is enacted if there is a financial crisis, and so financial crisis should not take place over citizen safety. Sorry about that. But the big thing was government executives did recommend to switch back to the Detroit water system, but this was disregarded by public officials, allowing the citizens to be affected by high lead concentrations over a longer period of time. And what they found out was this decision making was made from very few staff in about 1 or 2 departments. So more decision making of this importance should be done by a lot of people in a lot of departments to get proper information out as fast as possible. So the conclusion would be communication was the big problem in both spills. The government officials and employees did not notify the citizens as fast as possible and did not get clear and concise information out to the public in a timely manner. And training in NIMS and ICS were not in place for government officials. And that is all I have. Thank you.